Not all fish feeders are made equal. In fact, the aF4 by inD Aquatics is the first of its kind, giving reefers the ability to reliably feed frozen foods to their reef automatically. Whether that's because you're going to be away on vacation or you'd like to make sure your high-energy fish like anthias or chromis are getting that extra midday feeding while you're at work, the aF4 is a total game changer. And it actually works differently than I would have expected for a feeder that's designed to feed frozen foods. But before we get into all that, let's talk specs. The aF4 has a 200 milliliter max capacity, which works out to roughly 40 average size cubes of food. It has a dose range of 5 milliliters up to 50 milliliters, and the max period of time between refills is 21 days or 3 weeks. It can hold the food's temp between -1 and 5 degrees Celsius and has 6 feet of tubing, and it's relatively compact at just about 6 inches by 5.5 inches by 7 inches tall. Now, when I imagined a frozen food auto feeder, I pictured some sort of a feeder you fill up with cubes of food and then it spits them out into the tank. But that's not at all how this one works. It's probably for the best. Rather than trying to keep the food frozen and accurately dispense it, which is a logistical nightmare, the aF4 uses a slurry that you make by dropping the frozen food into the reservoir, followed by some salt water, which will allow it to thaw, but still be kept ice cold without actually freezing up. This keeps the food fresh for up to 21 days while also allowing it to be precisely dosed to the tank via the internal peristaltic pump. The aF4 also automatically flushes the lines of any leftover food with water from your reef tank, so there's no risk of old funky food hanging out in the line and being dosed into the tank. Each feeding is as fresh as the last one. It is ingenious. The pump uses larger 6.7 millimeter tubing and will reliably and accurately deliver foods up to 6 millimeters in size, meaning all of our favorite reefing staples like mysis, adult brine shrimp, nauplii, calanus, cyclopods, and other similarly sized foods are going to work perfectly. And you don't have to stick to frozen foods either. Any food that requires refrigeration, like Reef Nutrition's beta brine, oyster feast, or oceanic eggs, are also an option for automatic feeding. And yes, you can absolutely mix mysis with cyclopods or brine shrimp with calanus, or all of the above all together. As long as you give it a really good mix after you add that salt water to it, it should stay well mixed all on its own and have no problems going through the feeder. You can use the included bracket on rimless and Eurobrace tanks with panels up to roughly ½ an inch thick, and an adapter is available for aquariums with thicker panels or tanks with a trim. When it comes to where you have the aF4 deliver the food, you've got 2 reliable options. The obvious choice is to have it deliver the food directly to the display tank, or if you prefer to keep the tubing concealed, you can also have it delivered to the return pump of your sump, which will then deliver the food up to the display. And they also have a bracket for holding the tubing right in front of the pump's intake if that's the route that you'd like to go, which makes sure the pump takes all of that food up to the display where it belongs. The aF4 has a few different control options, starting with the refreshingly simple onboard controls. When you power up the unit, whatever time of day it is, that's the time that the feeder will dispense food. So if you turn it on for the first time at 12 noon, 24 hours later, it will feed at 12 noon. There are buttons to offset that time by 2 or 4 hours in either direction, -4 being 8 a.m. and +4 being 4 p.m. with our 12 noon example. You can also adjust the feed quantity in milliliters, with 5 being the lowest and equivalent to a standard cube of frozen food, with 50 being the highest. There are also temp settings, with the recommended setting being either the snowflake or the first dot. The higher settings are really meant for specialized situations that 99% of reefers probably won't need, but it is great to have options. There is also a feed now option for dispensing your set volume of food at the push of a button. It's great for on-the-fly feedings when you want to give the tank a bit extra, but it is also super useful for priming the feeder's first feeding, since it won't feed for 24 hours when you first set it up. The auto clean function, however, is not meant to be used when you have food in the reservoir. If you do push it, all of the food in the reservoir, all of it, will end up getting dosed to the tank. What it's really meant for is flushing the whole system with water between refills as a quick purge to make sure everything is clear and for when you're ready to do a deep clean on the unit using their cleaning tabs, which I'll touch base on more in a little bit. For more refined control, including multiple feedings a day at specific times, the aF4 is also 0 to 10 volt compatible, and you can pick up an adapter for control with your Neptune Systems Apex, plus they already have a great walkthrough on setting it up through Fusion. Now, if you want app control without the need of an aquarium controller, they do have you covered with the inD Connect bundle that pairs up with the iwi Link remote app. Not only can you set specific feeding times and have multiple feedings a day, but you also have the ability to feed through voice control, which is very cool. Maybe not a control option you'll use every day, but still a lot of fun, so bonus points. The aF4 also has built-in safety features, including a temp alarm that is both visual and audible to let you know in the rare event that the unit is failing to reach the right temperature, which makes sure that you don't accidentally feed spoiled food to the tank, which is very reassuring. There are also a bunch of accessories available, like the reservoir reload and rack package that gives you 3 more reservoirs with silicone lids and a rack to keep them neatly organized for quick swaps and convenient refills. Of course, there's the pump feed adapter and the rim adapter that I mentioned earlier. There is also a shelf for the unit itself for mounting in a cabinet if you're lacking enough floor space, and of course, the cleaning kit bundle. The kit makes maintaining the unit a cakewalk. It includes a thin tubing brush for making sure the tubes in the display can be easily cleaned of any algae or biofilm. It also has a larger brush for cleaning out the reservoir between uses, cleaning tablets for monthly deep cleaning of the system off of the aquarium, plus a TechWeave sleeve for keeping those tubes looking tidy, and a silicone reservoir lid for keeping that food secured when you're storing it in the freezer for those who only intend to use the aF4 while they're on vacation for keeping those finicky feeders properly fed. And whether you plan to use it as a frozen-friendly vacation feeder or a way to make sure your anthias and other high-energy fish get that extra feeding of frozen food every day, this feeder is a total game changer. And if that sounds like it matches your reefing mantra, you can check one out for yourself right here.